Welcome to the Octopod. I'm Kyle Davis, head of the Office of the CTO. Join us as we dive into the latest technologies and trends shaping business. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business leader, or just looking to stay ahead in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Let's unlock opportunities with technology together. Let's jump in.
Hi, this is Tim Russell, and today I am your host on the Octopod, and I'm extremely pleased to have with me Dan Scarfe, CEO and founder of Xrai Glass. Dan, do you want to say hi?
Hi, Tim. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. Now, Dan and I, we've spoken quite a few times recently, and we thought it'd be useful to have a call where, we have one of our normal chats, but maybe we deliver some value to you, the listener, to understand, what's important around XR, AR, VR, spatial computing, why you might want to keep this kind of in the front of your mind because of the changes that we're both seeing and expecting to see over the next 12 to 18 months. Now, Dan, do you want to give a very brief background of your role in Xrai and what you do so we can understand, obviously, your background?
Without going into my whole life history, I actually spent 20 years in the same world as you did, Tim, in the kind of Microsoft space, enterprise IT, worked with big companies, helped them to move to the cloud. Cut a long story short, we sold that business to another company called Cognizant. And after we all left from there, we wanted to do something a little bit more impactful. So I'm actually quite new to this whole AR world. I've only been in the space for maybe 3 years, perhaps. And we've created Xrai, which is this application that turns sound into visuals that, allows people to see live subtitles. But it's, a fascinating space to be in. And, already we're kind of one of the folks talking about, this is the year now when finally AR is going to take off. And, everyone chuckles and goes, oh, yeah, we've been saying that for the last 15 years, welcome to the newbie on the circuit. But I'm going, no, I feel like something's different. I feel like actually we're getting to a point now where this could go mainstream.
And it's really interesting. The fact that we feel this difference is not just, this is maybe why we have these good conversations, is we both see this change because we have the miniaturization of silicon. It's all got smaller. Batteries have become more efficient. We've got the Google glasses, which were launched, 2014, I think, and everyone's perspective is it was 10 years too early. I know Qualcomm are doing some really energy-saving chips that have been put into a lot of these devices. But for me, it's not just about the devices because I think, keep me honest on here, I'm tracking 25 to 30 different, and it's not even rumors, it's the actual products I can pre-buy. And as we spoke about, I backed to Kickstarter a little over a year and a half ago. I received their glasses at the start of this year. And I've been blown away with what a difference having heads-up data presented in my line of sight is.
Yeah.
But I think, we have these 25 to 30 suppliers and they're all going to try and do their own way. Is there a way of joining this up? Are there standards we can expect to come forward? We remember those of a certain age that whole Betamax and VHS argument. Are we going to find conflicting standards, or do you think all these developers have grown up, for want of a better expression, to start aligning to this idea? We develop hardware, but one good quality software underneath this will join us all together.
Well, it's ironic given that we're one of the world's only cross-platform augmented reality applications. So we're right in the very crosshairs of some of these challenges. One of the bigger challenges right now is that there are so many different form factors and kinds of glasses. We think about them just as glasses, but immediately there are some huge differences. So, we have tethered glasses versus non-tethered glasses. So, we have glasses that take their compute from the device that they're connected to versus glasses which have all of the compute which is built into them. We then have glasses which exhibit different characteristics in terms of their spatial awareness. We have glasses which have no spatial awareness, 0 degrees of freedom in technical jargon. We then have glasses that have some awareness of the movement of the wearer, but no movement in the room. And then we have glasses that have full spatial awareness. So we've got these all-in-one glasses, we've got tethered glasses, we've got 0 DoF, 3 DoF, 6 DoF, different manufacturers, different silicon. And that's one of the biggest challenges with creating this unified platform, unified standard, is because there's such extremes in the capabilities of these different glasses that it's hard to get a consistent platform. Now, Qualcomm are trying. So Snapdragon Spaces that you might be familiar with, that is their attempt to do this. But that's targeting the high-end 6 DoF devices. There's, of course, Android and the work that they're doing with their XR space. There's the operating systems that are coming out. That's the next interesting battleground. We've got Horizon OS, we've got the Snap OS, we've got Snapdragon Spaces, we've got all of these different competing OSs that are going to try and get the developers' attention. It's just a minefield right now.
Yeah, I imagine, and obviously the Vision OS as well. Definitely the high-end equipment that I've also had the pleasure of experiencing, and really is quite amazing. Maybe we just want to quickly break out here for the uninitiated who are listening to this. So we got 6 directions of freedom, if I
Degrees.
Yeah, degrees of freedom. So do you want to give a real simple explanation of 0 to 6 DoF and what it actually means from an experience perspective?
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, one of the hardest things to do in the first place is to even describe to someone what augmented reality is if they haven't experienced it before. So people say, oh, so it's written on the inside of the lens. You're like, well, you kind of, but you don't read it from the lens. It sort of projects in front of you. I don't understand. You're like, have you ever been in a car that's got a heads-up display before? That's basically the same idea. It's basically bouncing some light into your eyes and something magically appears in front of you. Now, okay, all right, I'm following you so far. Okay. So then the most basic experience is that this thing that's projected in front of you moves with your head. You know, it has no idea what you're looking at. It's literally just a heads-up display in your line of sight, and as you move, it moves with you. So that's 0 degrees of freedom. We then have 3 degrees of freedom. So this now understands gaze. It now understands where I'm looking. So I can now pin something, like my heads-up display in my car, but I can now move my head about, and that thing stays locked where I left it. So that's image stabilization. You might want to think of it as an ability to keep locked. But if I now get up and walk around, it's going to stay locked at the exact same position in front of me. I can move my head about as I walk and it'll still stay nicely steady in front of me, but it will move with me. So that's 3 degrees of freedom. Now 6 degrees of freedom is now spatial awareness. So I can now pin something to a wall, for example, and I can now wander around the room and it's going to stay positioned on that wall, because 6 degrees of freedom understands X, Y of you walking around, basically, and understands walls and panes, and you can kind of pin things to them. But again, each level up requires more compute. Because for 0 DoF, there's no compute required. It's just literally fixed in space. For 3 degrees of freedom, I need to, it's called an IMU, basically like a gyroscope. So I need to gyro in, stabilize the image out. 6 degrees of freedom needs cameras. So now all of a sudden I've got real-time video feeds. I've got to scan the room and I've got to see, the walls and how I'm moving around. So that requires an incredible amount of compute. And that's the mountain that we've got to climb.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because you highlighted some things I wasn't 100% sure of. I won't pretend to know everything, and I'll learn every day. But what's interesting is obviously the further up the DoF you go, you have the compute, you have the battery, the capability, but then you talked about 6 DoF requiring a camera to be aware of your surroundings. Now, that's going to lead me into the question of how is society accepting this cameras in your face? Because if you have a camera on a mobile phone, it's kind of obvious if you're filming things. But this whole forward-looking camera constantly recording the environment around us, are we ready? And how are we dealing with that? I'm expecting a generational adoption, but I'm interested in your perspective on this.
It's fascinating. So first of all, going back to the Google Glass, of course, we all remember the label that was given to everyone, glass holes, and, it was major allergic reaction. So that's kind of the starting point 10 years ago, and everyone just stayed well away from it for the last 10 years. But obviously we're now back having these conversations again, and it's similar questions. What was quite interesting was Xrai, who you might know, they're the world's number one AR glass manufacturers. They've just gone from 3 DoF to 6 DoF. So their Air 2 Pros are 3 DoF devices, their Air 2 Ultras are 6 DoF devices, and the biggest difference, of course, being that they've had to add cameras. Now, they did not describe them as cameras. In fact, they do not even allow developers to access them. They are environmental sensors, and they've done that for 2 reasons. One is to make it very clear that these are not cameras, and to stop developers from being able to access them. I saw one of these little memes that went round the other day of someone that's built an app which is basically doing real-time facial recognition of, everyone that you're walking past and going searching on the web, and these people go, oh my God, this is amazing. And there was some brilliant comment from someone saying like, yes, well, we do have laws against this. It's called like Biometric Protection Act. And I'm like, oh, that's lovely that you're messing around with this, but like, for God's sake, do not bring this to the US because you'll be in a ton of trouble. So, there's extremes there, I guess, of, a company that really understands what they're doing and, one that doesn't. So
yeah, it's interesting. We're touching a little bit. It's not even science fiction, right? Yeah, the fact that people are working on this, it's physically possible. And I know, having worked in the German environment, the Workers' Council and cameras are a big issue about personal privacy. And you say about American Act, but we have to be honest. The biggest use for me in XR is the fact that I can't remember someone's name 5 minutes ago.
I know.
And this would give me that. It doesn't give me an edge. It just helps me be more polite. And do you think there's going to be a development where we have an allowable, acceptable use of XR, maybe not in cloud, but in a local device that allows you to collate this information to improve your recognition of your surroundings? Or do you think it's always going to be a case of no cameras in my face?
Well, again, so an interesting analogy with what the EU is doing with all of their protection acts. They've said thou will not do anything. And so all the tech companies have gone, no problem, we'll just ignore Europe then, and we'll just carry on doing exactly whatever the heck we want over in the US. So this stuff will happen. You can put as many laws as you want, and everyone can get as upset as they want. But in 10 years' time, we're just going to look back and go, oh, wasn't that quite that, they were talking about stuff like that, because it will just be so normal. This spatial world, this whatever we want to call it, and I suffer from the exact same thing. I'll meet someone at an event, and probably by the end of the event, I've already forgotten who they were. Never mind the next time I see them, and the awkwardness of like, oh, nice to meet you. And they say, yeah, no, we met like a few months ago. I mean, it would be wonderful if it could pop up and say, this is this person, this is where you met them, this is what you talked about, and this is what you agreed to do that you probably didn't get around to doing.
In the same way we use notes files to track during a meeting things we promised to do. It's quite an interesting space to be. And then we bring the next thing in, right? At the minute, we're talking about basic environmental handling and giving us information to help us improve or understand the environment. And one of the use cases I've been using for a long time with my zero DOF devices that, I absolutely love, if I'm honest, is imagine you're a doctor walking up to the bedside. How often do they look at the notes and you're just in a bed waiting for them to talk to you? What if they were presented contextual information that tells you who you are, primary condition, primary statistics? They can engage in a conversation that creates a connection to the patient. And that could be done with zero DOF using near-field communication on a mobile device where you're not using biometric, you're using a physical location. But there are so many use cases where this could deliver a benefit. Now, I think you and I could probably talk all day long about where this could go, what the potential possibles are, and maybe some ideas we could bring into law. But where I want to touch on now is, it wouldn't be sort of this generation if we weren't talking about AI at some point. Do you think, we're jumping back to one of our earlier conversations where we're saying, now is the time where this stuff's going to become relevant? Is AI actually going to drive an ever increased adoption of this equipment and its use and utilization?
This is the point, of course, where I'm highly biased because my company is XR AI. And so, we are forged from the vision that XR and AI are codependent and are going to drive adoption of each other. So the simple answer, of course, is yes. And Xrai is a great example of that. So, I mean, we do transcription and translation. You can have debate about whether they are or aren't AI, but let's, for the purposes of this conversation, say they are. There's a killer use case of XR. I want to be able to subtitle conversations and I want to be able to do real-time translation. Something as simple as that is going to drive, we think, mass adoption. When you start to bring the assistant into it as well, that's where it starts to get, of course, even more interesting. One of the things that we're fascinated about are location-based assistants. So as I walk around the world and go into a venue, for example, should my assistant running on my device, my phone, my glasses, be able to interface and interact with assistants that are running at that venue? So it might be at the airports. And so as I enter the airport, it knows what flight I'm supposed to be catching. It can talk to the airport systems. It can help navigate me through to the right gate. Something as simple as that, again, could have a revolutionary impact. So as you can start to interface with your surroundings more, if you like, that I think can have breakthrough results.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not that there's a killer use cases. It's the fact that it's enabling us to do more, save time, be more connected. I was just thinking there's a talk that I have quite often, and this is about the use of blockchain to store my preferences, my individualisms, who I like. And that could then be used in a secure way to hook into those systems, to present you with information relevant to you. And stepping outside of VR and XR and AR, I always imagine this scenario where every AI interaction I have for the rest of my life would be with the same person, same voice, same look, same appeal, same characteristics, because it's stored in a blockchain that stores my preferences, which means regardless of who you are. I wondered if we're going to start being able to put an overlay in with our AR that starts portraying people in a way that we want to see them rather than the way we don't. But anyway, I got off a tangent there. That's a weird one.
But there is an interesting, bigger discussion there about, how do AI and blockchain play nicely together? Because the biggest problem with AI, which is about to happen, is how do we prove authenticity? For example, so like video footage in a court of law can no longer be relied on because that might be AI generated. So I think there's a really interesting interplay between blockchain and AI, because you can actually prove now that something is a real asset in some way, or is real in some way, not AI generated. And to your point, I could prove and say, these are my preferences, these are whatever they are, it's in a blockchain, and now the AI can consume that or validate it or whatever, however it's described.
Interesting. Now, we're going to jump back to the glasses again, because while you were talking about how this handles data and presents in your line of sight, something we've seen in contact centers, and I've been in contact center since I was very young. It's been more or less my entire IT has in some way been attached to contact center, or at least that's where I started. You now have the possibility to live react to conversations where an AI can monitor a conversation and say, we've got heightened tones, we're seeing stress patterns. Do you see a use case where I could have my device listening to me and saying, you're in an area of heightened stress, or you are sounding stressed, chill, relax, breathe? Do you think that's a use case that's going to come forward?
I think that's just one of dozens that could come through. Your own personal coach, basically, that's going to be sat there with you the whole time, constantly giving you advice, constantly giving you interesting information.
So I think everyone who's listening to this is going to be building up their use cases for their industry, for their personal life, their business life. There is not a person or a business I haven't spoken to who comes up with their use case. So we opened this up, it's called saying, look, there's a reason why this needs to be on your agenda. There's a reason why you need to be aware of this. On the one side, it's the art of the possible. On the other side, it's the awareness of people wearing and utilizing these devices. My daughter, who's just finished studying to be a teacher, said when I showed her my zero DOF glasses, which literally look like glasses, people could walk into an exam and I wouldn't know they're being fed line of sight. And that made the realization apparent to me that actually we need to be aware of the both sides of this. The benefits that can come, but the protections we need to put in place, because this isn't security that we're used to. We used to say, and put your phones in a bag. But people wearing glasses have always been, well, you're wearing glasses, it's fine, carry on through. I think, I don't want to be a scaremonger, but there's a point to this that we need to be aware of how this can negatively impact your environment, but just as much look at the positive. Would you add anything to that, Dan?
No, I mean, I think you're spot on. I mean, what's quite interesting is I don't think people realize how miniature these things have got. Anyone talks about AR, they immediately think the HoloLens, or they think the Apple Vision Pro, they think they're these big things. You're like, no, like there are literally tiny little glasses now that have all of this capability. And when you start to have that kind of form factor, to your point, the opportunities become endless because you can start to use it for all kinds of things that you never thought were possible before.
Yeah, well, positive and nefarious. Look, the last question I'm going to close off with, Dan, I really do appreciate having this chat. I think we're going to talk for hours, is application in the enterprise world. People can see individual use cases. Do we think, or do we expect that we can either drive or see a large-scale adoption of this technology into specific personas within the enterprise world?
I mean, again, it depends how many DOS we're talking, what kind of software, but, for the most sophisticated software, things like remote assist are perfect right now. And there's some really, really brilliant solutions, whether it's in manufacturing, engineering, maintenance, and ability to beam in an expert. Super interesting when you're looking at healthcare and, again, the ability to bring in experts from elsewhere. I think that one is classic and well-trodden use case available now. Things like Xrai, transcription and translation, again, mass usage, of devices like this available in the enterprise now. And assistance, an ability to be able to summon information at any time from your own systems. Again, this is not general purpose GPTs. These are your own corporate GPTs that you're summoning through a device like this. I think that's super interesting. And dozens more in, industry specific scenarios.
Yeah. That definitely ties into the things I'm hearing and seeing. And for everyone listening, it's definitely not just watch this space, prepare to embrace this space is what I would say. Dan, I really appreciate you joining me on this. And any closing comments? Otherwise, I'll thank you for joining me. And it was, as usual, an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure to check out the back catalogue for more great insights. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, feel free to reach out. Catch you next time.